We are alive. We are running. Right, Carlo. We've literally just come from elsewhere. We're all running around like headless chickens. But it's all looking good now.
As always,
It's all looking good. I hate Mondays. I've told
Monday
you.
Mondays are always super exciting.
Yeah, exciting. I use stressful. Right. We're into the game. We're going to talk about lists then. We know that George deployed first. Rossi won the role to deploy. No, George won the role.
George won the role. George won the role for deployment. He gave choice of sides over to Rossi, which of course means that Rossi also deploys first. George will have choice of first or second turn.
Yep. We see the lists come out, and a bit of a surprise for myself and Carlo a little bit. We see George's Courtney list coming out.
Is that a surprise? I thought that was an absolute given. This game mode, particularly with the walls at the sides, pinching in the frontage, means that a 5-wide wall of armor is an absolute nightmare. There are no weak spots in this list to get in and around, and I think that the game mode really favors the Baratheons because of the way that the damage from those walls comes in when you're 3+ armor right across the board. You're really not caring that much about those D3 hits. That's not a thing that you care about. You don't take it from the flank. You're just getting hit. It's not an attack, no morale test. I think that this is a very, very powerful list into this game mode from OpenCity. Very strong NCU setup with Courtney, Eldon, and Shira. And, I think that 2 Rose Knights plus Champions of the Stag are a formidable defensive formation.
Yeah. Do you think? When I said it was different to what I thought it was going to be, I thought he might have chosen his. I thought he had a Renly list, not his Loras list. So I thought we were going to see Renly come out. But yeah, with this, this doesn't surprise me. This is what I'd see.
And that is the exact. We're looking here now. This is the exact mirrored, symmetrical kind of deployment that I expected to see, which is those Champions of the Stag, while not the fastest cavalry, are going to rush that center point. Those wardens are going to sit back a little bit past the midline, protecting both flanks and also controlling points. Generally not going to do a lot. For 5 points, you couldn't possibly ask for a better unit to sit on those objectives and not do a lot other than be very hard to kill. And then those Rose Knights are going to be a real issue if 3 Sails, if OpenCity can make sure that he doesn't allow a flank attack ever to come in, then taking them on one-on-one is a nightmare for anybody, never mind Freefolk.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's have a quick look at Rossi's list. We'll swip the camera around. Hey, we've got unit of raiders, unit of trappers, unit of raiders with Harmer, the attachment variant in, giant with Then with steer, and a unit of trappers with a bear. Now, as a Freefolk player, do I like this list? It's an interesting question. It has some real positives to it. I like the double trappers. I like the giant as a bit of a can opener against the Baratheon units. That's a really good choice, I think. And using the bear alongside it with the 1 skin changer, again, a bit of another can opening unit, especially with Styre and his reactivations. Now, my criticism might come in the shape of he doesn't actually massively outnumber George and outweigh George in terms of field presence, and this might come back to bite him. What I would say though is those steer Thens are going to be deceptively hard for George to kill because George doesn't have any Alpha Strike units.
Yeah, that's true. I think Rossi's list requires a lot more finesse to play here, right? It's a lot more technical rather than this Baratheon list, which is just going to walk forward. It's just going to walk forward and try and get to the points as early as possible. And once they're there, they just want to stay. He would like to threaten either real or fake countercharges. But in reality, there's not a lot to it in terms of positioning. in general. Whereas I think that if Rossi wins this game, then he has done far more technical plays and far more interesting and exciting plays. I think that he's up against it, but that doesn't mean that he can't win this game at all.
Yeah, I agree.
The giant in there with no Walder, you does have to be very careful of what is it? I forget the Courtney card. The Courtney card is a defensive
defensive counter.
Defensive counter. Defensive counter is a big play against the giant, but there's no Walder to shut him down in that kind of way. So it is interesting, and there is no Varys to stop Styr, so he can be sure of those guaranteed wounds reliably. So we have an interesting setup here, and there is definitely room for both players to make very, very big plays. Like a lot of players play very controlling defensive lists, like in terms of NCU setup and tactics cards. There isn't a huge amount of counterplay here, so that leaves open the door for both players to make really big plays, big tactical card plays, and big NCU plays, which it should be really exciting.
Yep. All right. So, just busy doing some more setup and things like that. Yeah, I rate both players here. Actually, I rate both players' chances. I don't think there's necessarily good or bad chances for either player here. I think there's some good options available. Now, we've seen some first plays out. We saw Courtney come out into the letters first from George, a common Baratheon opening play. That put down the vulnerable token with Courtney there, and we saw Mance taken on horses in return to move the raiders forward. Mance came down, but it was irrelevant because Shira has then bags to take the token off and put another token down, which is a weakened onto the trappers. And we see now Craster going on to the crowns. Big play from Rossi here, really noticing that crowns is the only damage he can sustain this turn. He probably replaces it with a card draw of his own, to guess. He hasn't taken it yet. But he might.
I assume he's gonna just take those tactics card. I think that it's interesting here that OpenCity had choice of first or second, having given Rossi choice of deployment, and he's gone for first turn himself. He hasn't rushed towards the horses, so he's not desperately trying to turn this into a race for the center. Of course, what we didn't mention is that in this game mode, the center has a objective tactics kind of additional rule. Sorry, it has an additional objective rule, and in this it has come up as an additional VP when scoring, and controlling unit takes a -2 panic check. So that's a huge objective. 2-point swing if you can get on it. It is a little bit dangerous to those champions of the stag, though, who don't want to be taking those -2 tests.
No. Interestingly, Weirwood, though, they're kind of offset a little bit by the corpse pile. It's likely that a unit controlling one will be in range of either. Okay, so we saw it was the panic test come out instead of the card draw from Craster, and he went for a -1 panic check, but it passed on a 7. The lowest morale that George has access to is obviously 6 for the Wardens and the Rose Knights. Rolling a 7 would be a pass. And we saw Eldon come out onto swords for the card draw. We see George now sitting on a standard Baratheon card hand of 7, and Ygritte being wasted. So George is the first person to actually activate on board.
Yeah.
It's going to be champions.
It looks like it's going to be champions. They're probably just going to push themselves a full 12 inches forward. The big things that Rossi's going to want to do is he's going to want to try and Mance to generate a lot of tokens onto that unit of champions. If he could bring their movement down to 3, that will slow them down a lot. But once they hit that center point, they probably don't want to go any further. So it looks unlikely that Rossi will get there first, and he's already going to have an uphill battle to try and win back that point.
Yeah.
It's going to be very much down to how much damage can he kind of spike through on the champions. I think he needs to do damage to them very quickly, i.e., like quite a short space of time. And the more I see this develop, the more I think that OpenCity's made a really good choice by going first on the first turn. Turn 2 will still be a bit of a waiting game, and turn 3 is where this game's really going to kind of heat up, and where that first activation, I think, is going to come into being a really big play.
We've had a load of more viewers join the stream recently. Make yourselves known below, guys, if you are here to watch the game. Obviously, it's great to see people arrive. Great to see people actually playing, and yeah, hopefully we'll be all right. I'm just gonna close that down. I've had a couple of issues. I'm getting some bandwidth problems, but hopefully everything's all right.
An interesting choice here in the deployment by Rossi. He seems to have chosen to forego taking one of his own side objectives. He looks to be ignoring it with his raiders, and although he still has a large frontage because he's Freefolk, he has effectively gone for a refused flank here. He looks to be trying to bear down on one side. And interestingly, he's gone for the side that has the weirwood trees for the one he's going to focus on, whereas Three Sails has a near mirrored deployment, almost exactly mirrored. But he now seems to be looking to show that those Freefolk raiders might still take that objective anyway. It would be quite big to just give it up for no gain, considering that the wall damage will not really kill a unit by itself. There is going to have to be more investment there to get a unit off of it, and picking up that 1 point a turn is definitely going to be key.
I don't actually like Rossi's. I know we talk about like really kind of simple things on the play here, but I don't like Rossi's movement here. Angling like this, he should have angled a little bit further over, because now when he moves on to the objective and pivots, there's a good chance he can't pivot in a way where he can retain control of the objective in a nice way.
So you'd like him to be facing it with his center point, for example, so that he has more pivoting choices.
The third rank, the third file, like we've spoken before about, and the opportunity that kind of like geometrics gives you.
We'll see if that positioning kind of comes up to rear its head later. I think that this, particularly because the two VPs has come up in the center, this game is going to be an absolute melee for that middle point. And it's going to be a question of whether or not Harmer, with the bear and its vicious attacks, plus the giant, whether or not he can spike through enough damage to kill off these champions of the stag, or if it's going to become a really horrible melee.
Yeah.
Of course, he's going to want to focus on the champions of the stag while ignoring the Rose Knights if possible. Once the Rose Knights start to take damage, they will start to kick in all of their healing and damaging abilities at the same time. But if he can kill off the champions of the stag while ignoring the Rose Knights, then he really has a good shot to retake that center point. And the Rose Knights themselves might not even have enough damage to then win the point back.
Now, interestingly, hopefully that's fixed my volume issues there, Brushbiter. Interestingly, the bear had forgotten to maneuver when he activated the Skin Changer Trapper unit. I wonder if he realizes that his Skin Changer's in the Trapper unit and not Harmer's unit. I do wonder. Yeah, so okay, I think he's worked out right. I just think he's forgot to move it. He's moved it forward there, and then he's using Harmer, which I assume is with Harmer's order, on either the giant or the bear. I'd use it on the bear in this case to move out of the giant's march. It's just a wall of flesh walking towards a wall of steel at the moment.
Of course, the giant itself can, of course, use its march to leapfrog through a friendly unit. So he doesn't need to clear a path for it. It can just jump on through.
And in fact, he does exactly that.
He's doing now. We've got a full activation from the Baratheon side, so we're just finishing out on the Freefolk side. It's interesting. The giant may choose to try and take the point first, and then the champions of the stag would have to come and get it off them. Otherwise, it looks like it would be the champions kind of just wandering onto that point. I believe that the Champions of the Stag will be too far away from the center point to take it with a horse's maneuver. So that's going to be a full activation to take that ground.
Whoops.
That's one of the important points about being a movement 4 cavalry here, or being a movement 4 unit in general, is that if you were movement 5, you could claim that objective. But as movement 4 with a 6-inch deployment, you can't make it to the center point with 2 marches or 2 maneuvers and a march. A really important kind of distinction for those units.
Sorry to everyone in chat there. Just briefly switching the thing. I've not set up my things properly today with having such a tight time to get things ready. Okay, so yes, the end of turn 1, end of round 1. Sorry, oh God, been playing another game and it uses turns instead of rounds. Nightmare. End of round 1, we see this strategy here going for the Freefolk, which is going to be like this wall approaching and the wall defending. Champions of the Stag leading
Rossi
the charge.
has Rossi's discarded distraction tactics generally, not one of the top end Freefolk cards. He should be drawing a new card for that. I'm currently still sat with 2. Of course, OpenCity, with that standard opening of taking letters, drawing 2 cards, using Eldon, taking 2 more cards, he has 7 cards in hand. There is no value to him now discarding enough cards to be able to draw again. But that in itself is an issue, which is that he now will not draw any cards for free. And it's often overlooked that ignoring letters on the first turn, if you have a really bad 3 cards in your hand, you might just want to discard them anyway and draw 3 new cards.
Yeah.
But it's very standard for Baratheons to end up with half their deck in their hand. And at least they know that they have nearly all the triggers that they do have in their deck well covered.
Yeah. So we saw there the double token coming down onto the champions, but then Shira coming down and removing the panicked token from the champions, putting a weakened token onto the giant. That is the giant with a weakened token. Giants have a notorious habit to miss things.
But importantly enough, it's still, with just the 1 token, is a -1 move on those Champions of the Stag. So, that 1 token is enough to really affect that unit with its 4 movement.
Definitely. What do you think we should do now? I personally really like a giant. Taking Ygritte maybe onto the giant and kind of just marching him forward. Interesting, he goes for a panicked on this giant. Giant must have already had a weaken from last turn.
Yeah, the panicked is optimistic. I would like to see a vulnerable generally if you're going to try and force through damage. We're seeing Ygritte looking like she's going to activate. The horses, of course, has some value, but both seem to be very tentative about engaging with each other. I'd be interested to know whether or not the trappers are already within 12-inch range of the Champions of the Stag, and whether or not giving them a straight-up charge onto the giant is something that Rossi really wants to give up. He could relatively easily look to get to the token first if he wanted. If either player is willing to go and get that center token, then they can have it first. But you know that the other person is going to get a lot of opportunity to react to that.
Right, okay. Yeah. So here's a big thing, right? It's a big general kind of rule of thumb when it comes to cavalry controlling objectives. They've only got 2 ranks. And it's a big issue, right?
Yep.
It's a big issue against Freefolk because they have a lot of units that can charge 3 ranks into you. And yes, there are, parry exists, Ours is the Fury exists. There are ways you can reduce those ranks, but the point is that the fact that they have that many ranks to start with is still enough to cause a problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the giant itself is bringing contest to anything it wants. if you're going to ever get it into a range where it's not contesting you, it's going to be so dangerous that that's not an issue anymore. So I think this game, this game, very largely hinges on how well this giant does. Like whether or not they can control, whether or not OpenCity can control killing the giant in a short enough space of time that it doesn't do huge amounts of damage, and whether or not Rossi can make sure that it doesn't get isolated in any kind of way that allows it to be brought down quickly.
Yeah. Okay, so we see Eldon coming down onto the crowns, and we see the swappy swap effect. We're going to see George draw even more of his cards. This is going to be half of, well, he's now seen 12 of his deck, and of course put some back.
Yeah.
He's now
I assume we're going to see, I would assume that we will see, of course, Craster as a replacement effect of his own. Of course, Courtney doesn't have huge value right now, but next turn, I would expect to see Courtney first activation. Depending on cards he has in hand, Letters is a very strong zone for Courtney. Courtney onto Letters, of course, will allow you to place out Courtney onto a unit, and at the same time give out a token, which means you target that unit, enemy unit, with a zone effect, therefore causing a healing effect. Of course, this all relies on there being damage this turn. But once that machine of Courtney gets going, Letters is a very good zone for him.
Yeah.
But depending on what combats we have, Swords might be an equally important zone. I think that things are going to get very bloody, very fast next turn.
So, so the thing I don't like, obviously we don't have Steer NCU in Rossi's list because he's running Steer Commander, which is only reasonable. But yes, it does. The not having Steer does negate the auto wound damage that you're going to see from the Freefolk here, but the giant really makes up for it. I don't dislike this Trapper play with Rossi. He puts him within 12 of the Wardens, just within 12, and so if they move here, I think he's just going to do the auto damage from the. He should do the auto damage from the orders.
Yeah, here we see it. Here we see it coming down.
It's a big 3.
Oh, big
want.
3. And what Rossi wants to see is he wants to be able to see himself chipping away at these wardens so that they can't be just left to be completely safe without any attention at all.
Yeah.
If he can force George to use some of his tactics board plays, money bags, use Courtney's healing onto these wardens to keep them safe, then he's going to divert attention away from the champions of the stag, which are where the game will be made or broken.
Yeah. I'm just going to have a quick shout out to chat. I've not been reading chat too much. It's been quite quiet today, unusually, at the NRG chat. Ooh, we've got Brosh Brighter I said hello to earlier. Brett, I helped you had to log in today because you didn't understand how streams work. Good work, Brett. Good to see you about, of course. Northern Realms Gaming, well, that's us. I'm guessing that's Daryl, just chilling in the background there. Lord Commander Bob, big YOLO, you Lord Commander Bob. I said thanks for joining the guild properly earlier. You missed that on Tawny Ground. And Carl from West Coast Bannerman. Do me a favour, Carlo, and turn me down a bit. I'm too loud on your end now. You don't like listening to my voice that much, do you? It's because I turn myself up. There we go. So, Affenkopf is here, and if you notice in the top right screen, you'll actually see he's in game as well. So he's watching the stream and the game twice. He just can't get enough. Song of Ice and Fire, the miniatures game right now. Or the tabletop game, we should really say. Or the tabletop taunt simulator game. Yeah, is that how it works? Is that what we should say? I don't know. Alright, so we saw the trappers activate there and the bear come with them. That was earlier. The wardens came up. We see the Thens going for a charge. Ooh.
This is an interesting aggressive move. If he fails, I think he might just stay where he is.
He doesn't, I don't think. I think he passes.
Yeah, looks like he's in. The thing that won't work.
Yeah, they can finish it there and then do that, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. I think this is a really interesting move.
I like
This
this.
is interesting because you want to make this engagement and this attack and this combat all happen while the Rose Knights are still way out of position. The Rose Knights are a long way from being able to affect this game yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a brilliant play. What Rossi wants to do is he wants to take advantage of his extra speed. He wants to make plays happen before George can get his movement 4 units up into position. Once it becomes a really long grind, then it's definitely in the Baratheon's favor. But if Rossi can make this a fast-paced game with early damage and units dying quickly, then it's going to have a really big effect.
Only one fail though on the armor save. You'd expect to do well. Only 5 hits from the Thens as well because they hit on 4s. We see the morale check. It's up 1 -1. That's a pass, right?
Yeah, looks like a pass from the front. It's of course it's enough to
he's
to
gonna play the
contest.
counter charge.
Yeah, that's not possible.
He can't play it.
Yep, there is, because he's gone for the 100% coverage. There is no frontage for him to go into, and that's why it's a really useful, good play by Rossi. He of course knows that with over half his deck in hand, you have to expect counter charge to be there.
Yeah.
He's unfortunate to only do the 1 wound, and we're definitely into a range where Courtney can start to do some work.
The important thing here, I might add though, is that Steer's unit is on 3 ranks, the Wardens are on 2. So this round, that's only scoring 1 point. And that's actually a really big, important thing, because he's shut down an early victory point from the Baratheons, and he's actually winning that trade now.
Yes.
So yeah, this bear is also 100% going to come along and block these Rose Knights. He's not even going to charge them necessarily, just stand in the way and buy up another turn.
Yeah. This game is all about, and the more this game develops, the more I'm seeing Rossi's good deployment and how he has effectively isolated the Rose Knights from being able to do anything particularly useful. They're currently in a corpse pile, ever slowing their movement, and we're seeing that if they don't do anything significant up until the 4th round, which is quite possible if he can block with the bear in the 3rd round, then that could be a huge game changer. That is definitely going to be Freefolk in strong control of this game if the Rose Knights have no effect up until a very late kind of turn.
Ooh, and we see a march come out from Harmer. This is a dominant play. He is just plonking.
This is a very interesting play.
There's no way this is the finished article, is it? There's no way he just plonks that there and says, "Look." I mean, he can kind of open his flank out a little bit. He can open his front. He can't control the token if he does this. Yeah, I was gonna say he's considering that, I guess, as an option. It would also block the Savage Giant from being able to charge anything, because it would have been in the way. Interestingly here, I think the Trappers can actually do the maneuver forward, followed by a shot into the champions. And with the 2-inch maneuver forward it would do, the Rose Knights wouldn't be able to charge. There would be no frontage for it to charge.
Yeah, of course. So George has, of course, revealed that he has
counter charge in hand.
So that needs to be a consideration at all times. He doesn't control letters, so there's no reroll, and he is in that corpse pile. But knowing that, if Rossi can always make sure that the position he's making an attack with is unchargeable, and because the attack and choice of when to attack and what to do is always in his own control, that is not necessarily that hard to make sure that there is no counter charge available. So I expect to see him be very careful about what he chooses to attack and the timing of it. The bear will come in very useful as a blocking tool as far as that goes. for me, one of the big questions is will OpenCity want to commit to using wardens to try and get across, particularly the corpse pile side, and attack a unit of raiders? If not, then he's probably going to slowly lose a 3 to 5 point exchange. But surely the wardens themselves, if they can get across to those raiders, can start to do damage. But they have to take a charge on through a corpse pile. And if they fail, they'll just be giving up their point for the turn.
Yeah.
So it's it may end up seeing George have to take risky maneuvers if Rossi can control the victory point count, which he currently is, thanks to the Thens being able to deny a point.
Yep. Okay, so got distracted there by a second. Sorry, guys. So a couple of people actually saying some interesting things in chat. What's up with low Freefolk activation? Interestingly, here's an interesting one for you, Carl. If you're not running the high activation Freefolk lists with something like 10 activations, I think actually it's 11 activations. If you're not running the 11 activation list, your win rate drops off at 10, and at 9 it comes back, and at 8 it drops off again. So 9 and 11, the odd activation limits, are actually good for Freefolk. 10 activation lists and 8 activation lists tend to do poorly. Interesting fact. Just from the data we've collected. Francesco, only 8 more attacks than they get this. Yeah, 8 more attacks than they get Rose Knights. Yeah, I'm not even going to mention that how that could be wrong. Yes, the Thens will hold a lot longer because of no sundering. And yes, Bazu, it's quite clear to me that there's no Ours is the Fury from the Wardens there, because we would have seen it played. So yeah, chat, keep keeping us right on track. Keep telling what you think. I'm sure there'll be ample opportunity. So we see that the Dog's Head did activate and did put herself in this weirdly compromising position. And the Trapper's moving up to protect the flank. Now, the funny thing is that the champions can't charge in on those Freefolk Raiders, as it stands right now.
Because we think that the 50% mark is in contact with the Rose Knights. Is that what we?
Yeah, the
is that what we
champions
think?
of the Stag would.
And then as long as these trappers cover 50% of the flank, then of course, even if they were able to maneuver with a 3-inch maneuver, it'd be touch and go whether or not they could make it into the flank arc. They would be again 50% covered.
Yeah,
this is where we're seeing that units that have more control over maneuvering can create situations that are really not favorable to a more static army like Baratheons. And if you're not using your advantages, and that is one of your advantages as the Freefolk player here, if you're not using that advantage, then that is why you're finding units like Rose Knights too powerful to play against.
Definitely agree. What I do like here, what I would personally do with Rossi's trappers, is I would move them to this location. Do it from above. I move them to this location here, probably at an angle like so. Probably quite an extreme angle, where you block the 50% with Harmer's unit, mainly just to block Harmer's unit, of course, as well. But the extreme angle meaning that you actually block off the side arc of your trappers with Harmer's unit, and they block each other. And so you'd have to charge the front of the trappers, which may or may not actually even be possible to get into the front arc with the 3 inches. That's what I would like to see. Alternatively, if he pivots, he's not making that. He could... Is he going to do it? Wow, he's just going to activate the giant. I feel like this is a...
Is this an activation, or
this is with the Harmer free maneuver?
I believe this is still with Harmer's. This is still with Harmer's free maneuver.
Yeah.
I think again he's trying to get past the 50% mark, or he's trying to make it so that the cavalry couldn't be 100%. I'm not sure what his actual thinking is here.
I like this. He's positioning so he can charge the flank of the cavalry if they charge in.
Of course.
And right now they can't go 50% this way because they'd hit the trappers. He could, of course,
Yeah.
go 50% that way, which is
So
fine.
he wants to make sure that his giant is looking at the flank of where the champions of the stag would end up.
Yes.
Yeah, very good forethought. I see.
And this would absolutely destroy the, because that would be a unit of trappers and a giant in the flank of a unit of. I don't think he can pivot to make that any closer. He had the movement to get there, so I can see what he's trying to do. What he should have just drawn is he should have just drawn a line 6 inches to where he was going, or sorry, 5 inches from his center point to where the new center point would be, to see if that would be in arc or not. He also needs to pivot the giant.
Interesting positioning. I think he probably wants.
He needs to pivot.
Be 90%.
There we go.
Yeah, changed. But of course, all this very, very technical maneuvering can actually begin to become a problem for yourself if you don't have full forethought, and especially when you start to place trays on the board and you discuss it with your opponent about where you think things will end up. You of course give away all your plans. OpenCity, of course, fully aware of the situation. They've agreed what will happen, and that's good that they've agreed it all. But of course, now it's entirely in OpenCity's control as to whether or not he wants to make that flank charge with the champions of the stag and go and take that point. He can, of course, wait, but waiting, I think, could well be the better move, considering the fact that. Rossi doesn't currently control the objective himself, the giant won't be able to get onto the objective, and the trappers may end up there, but I don't know for sure.
I'm a bit confused here. The giant seems to have taken a wound. Is that accidental?
I think that's an accidental clicking from too much maneuvering. But I would like to see OpenCity be patient and wait until he can bring his full units to bear.
Yeah. So we see instead he seems to be looking to just bring these Rose Knights into the game a little bit and just position them there, opening that whole vector for a bit of a melee.
Again, I would like to see him use the Rose Knights to be in a position that denies control of the center objective in any way to the trappers. I think that would be a relatively nice position.
I think they achieve
to take,
it
because we definitely seem to be in something of a denial kind of play at the moment, which I would say turn 1, turn 2, you have to give that to Rossi if they manage to both just play complete denial. And then Rossi is, of course, denying a point. He would at the moment go 2-1 up. And more importantly, OpenCity doesn't have as many things to do on his turn 3, where he's the first player, as he might otherwise want to.
Do a charge, set up a Courtney. That's about it, right?
Courtney, of course, will be able to heal the Wardens if that's what he chooses to do, because we've seen some damage. So Courtney isn't worthless as the first activation, but I think.
Is he going to go for this? Is he just going to plonk the giant in front of these champions and go, and what?
It would be a very ballsy move. He would be opening up. I mean, by the current positioning, he would also be opening up his flank to the Rose Knights, which are sat just by him.
Which is countercharge central.
And there is. Again, I think that this is gonna be mostly about looking at denial and forethought. I think we've both players here have committed to being very defensive with their positioning, and I think that the first person who shows a lack of patience will really regret it.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen here,
Yeah, I'm unsure as to what position Rossi will try and generate at the end. I think maybe for best would be for him to have his giant in between the raiders and the trappers. I think he would like that position where the giant can't be charged.
This prevents everything,
But
though, with the Rose Knight placement. The champions now don't do anything this turn. There's just nothing they
yeah,
can do.
which I don't think is a huge loss. I don't actually think it's a huge problem.
And Rossi
I
actually
really
looking
do
there,
not think that a giant is ever going to fit in there.
not as it currently stands.
And I don't think that it can maneuver into that position either. I don't think it has the movement.
Not this turn, because he
So
doesn't have
unless I'm
the...
overlooking a card play, it's not going to make it to there.
Well, there can't be any card play. No, there's nothing that would allow a giant to do an extra move.
No, we're not going to see a unit die, so there's no way we're going to see reactivations of units yet.
You'd have to go there, and that is more than 5 inches. Like, I can just
Yeah.
look at that and tell you that's more than 5 inches.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
that is obviously where he would have liked the unit to have ended up. And I think where he should have aimed his march positioning at, if he had had that forethought, then he could have gotten to that position. But again, like I was saying, when you go for these really technical maneuvers, a single like bad angle will completely mess up a whole chain of events.
Yep. This giant's not going to get there this turn. It's just not. I don't see... I understand what he's doing, the giant doesn't get there. It's as simple as that. There's no way around this. What do you do as the champions? Right now, do you just sit them still?
That's an interesting question. You have to assume that they're going to continue to get manced. So we've got to think about them as a movement 3 unit. They probably want to be roughly 7 inches away from the things that they want to charge. Maybe 6 is fine. But they want to be far enough away such that they're not blocking movement anymore. I think that OpenCity, if possible, wants to open up as much countercharge opportunities as possible. That's what he needs to think about. He needs to think about what will get charged and what countercharge options does that have. I think putting the champions...
Have they...
exactly in line with the Rose Knights might be one of the best things.
They're saying that fits. Which, if it does, then they didn't check that properly, did they? No, it fits. There's a clear fit.
Oh, yeah.
That seems like a
okay.
Poor placement for Rossi. Fair enough. So that's a non-disorderly charge.
I mean, at the time, I did think it was surprising to think that the Rose Knights might not fit in there, that the Rose Knights were blocking that. It seemed like a long distance. And yeah, we're going to see a big hit onto Homer's Raider unit. This unit could go down very quickly.
7 hits in total with the crit blow. We're going to see rerolls from the weekend, do you think? Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, we see the reroll.
Yeah.
And we see a much...
It's going to keep the unit healthier.
5 wounds.
As always, it's down. Big damage is down to the morale test.
Yep.
But this doesn't look brilliant, actually, for Rossi right now.
It's going to get better. I'm about to say something that we've not really considered. So 5 wounds and 1 armor save. So 4 wounds going. So full rank lost from Rossi's unit. The vulnerable is there.
What do you think that? What do you think we're going to see here from Rossi then?
Can you see that line of attack that giant has onto the Stag Knights?
Right. So of course you're talking about
the giant charging into these Stag Knights.
He's checking that positioning not as a place that he will maneuver into, but as a place that he will charge into.
Yeah. And actually, that completely changes things over because he'll control the token then. We also see Final Strike. After a friendly unit is attacked with... after defense dice are rolled, for each wound suffered by the defender, the attacker suffers 1 automatic hit. If defenders within short range of steer, they are not. They suffer -1. So that was 4 saves. You should have played that before the morale roll, technically. But he suffers 4 hits. If they're going to let the play go through. It's armor saves. He gets armor saves. It's not 4 wounds. It's just 4 saves he gets to make on the champions. Is it for each? For each wound suffered? No.
We saw.
Okay, they've misplayed that. He's taken 3 wounds because he's rolled 6 dice. It's after defense dice are rolled. The panic test is not part of the defense dice phase, so it's not after the panic test. Just a little. It seems like they've done it as a result of the panic test as well.
Yeah.
Which is
which is effectively doubled the amount of dice rolled, and it's gone very, very badly with all those ones. We're gonna need it. This could go spike very fast with this giant doing some damage. I believe it doesn't have a wound on it.
No, it doesn't. It shouldn't have a wound.
I don't know why that's there. We might need to see that weakened token
roll a 1
kind of come up good for a 1. Otherwise, these champions of the stag could go down very fast. Of course, we expect to see Courtney play into auto healing them very, very quickly at the start of the round. I think that the giant won't actually do that many wounds to the champions as long as he doesn't do any damage to it. But if it can get onto that token, then
surrounded and exposed,
then it doesn't matter. It will have achieved everything it wants to do, and things will be going very badly for George.
Surrounded and exposed coming out with counterplot coming out in George's favor with the success. This is a personal service announcement, guys. If it says a reroll, don't roll 2 dice. Roll the first dice, then is a reroll. It's a little thing, but you know, it actually kind of matters because you can make dice. In theory, you could make other ways to reroll dice. You don't roll extra dice on a charge, do you? You reroll them. He weakened the giant so that the attack when the giant does run in, it's not going to be as dangerous. So surrounded exposed was blocked from counterplot.
Interesting. I think that this move, it's easy to say in hindsight when you see the 5 wounds, but I think this move by the Champions of the Stag is hasty now that you see that it has allowed the giant to get onto the point, which will be 2 VPs plus get damage onto these Champions of the Stag, putting them into like defensive mode, putting them into basically looking to keep themselves alive rather than looking to do damage.
Yep.
All the while not even being on the point. I think that George could have used Rossi's positioning and knowing the fact that if he does, and if anything, will still be in a difficult position to like get control of it, and should have been focusing over on Styr and the Fens and the combat that was already engaged.
I think this is a 7-inch charge. You can't see very easily under the tray there, but I believe it's 7 inches. It might be 7 inches. It might not actually be. For the giant to charge the him there, I think it is 7 inches. It's literally just on the line of 7 inches. So this is anything but a 1, right? Anything but a 1 for the giant.
Could end up being quite a big dice roll. The most accurate method with TTS is, of course, the inches that you get when you generate the move, when you press move. But to see it, they probably should just pick up and move the raider unit that is currently in the way.
Yep.
That would give them access to a very accurate ruler that you can then pivot and see exactly where the minimum distance is and whether or not it's a straight line.
Mm-hmm. We see a 6 rolled anyway, so that was all a bit academic. So yeah, the 6 rolled, the 6th, the giant is in. Here comes the dice rolls then.
A big hit, which is more importantly, a big positional play. And I feel like George has walked into this one.
Not a 1. Is the weekend going to be respent? Spent? Yeah, it is. 1 in 6 chance. Nope. It's a 4 again. So the giant hits. The giant does D3 plus 2 hits. Or wounds, sorry. So this is 4 wounds, sorry. 4 wounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, interestingly, it looks like George healed 2 there. He'd only taken 4 wounds off the object, and he's now down to 4 wounds remaining, so he must have taken 4, then 4 from the giant. So maybe they recognise that they did roll too many on the previous roll, I'm guessing, from Final Strike. It's probably because he's listening into the stream, actually, thinking about it. No doubt, listening into the stream, making sure that the rules fit the rules. Okay then. What do you think? What do you think, Carlo? Where do you think we're at now?
I don't see a good way currently for George to kill this giant. He needs letters. He needs letters and Stag's Resilience. That is his most important play. I think we will start the next round with Courtney onto letters. Placing Courtney down on a unit and then giving it a token will allow him to heal the champions of the stag enough such that you hope they will survive an attack. That is assuming that then plays into Stag's Resilience straight afterwards as the next activation, where you're going to have to activate the champions of the stag, heal them, hope you get a lot of wounds, and throw an attack down onto the giant at the same time. He needs to spike through that damage at a time without leaving the giant on, say, 1 to 2 wounds left, because in that state, the giant will just straight up one-shot your champions.
Yeah. So we see the dice attacks coming out from the walls now, right?
Yeah.
It looks like this hit generated 4 dice. It was 2 on the D3, so this is 4 hits onto the wardens. Ooh, failed 2. Statistically worse. Yes. Teddy, the middle objective was the extra VP. So 4 hits on the Raiders there. The extra VP with the -2 panic. Ooh, 2 saves from the Raiders. That's a bad trade for George. 2 for 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then over here on the trappers, this is going to be... I only rolled a 1. So this is 3 saves on the trappers. I expect to see 3 dead trappers here. Although I have saved 2 rolls with trappers. Oh! That's 2, right? There's a 6 with 2 3s.
Yep. A little bit of RNG coming in there. The Baratheon Wardens, who should, of course, fare the best out of all those units by a significant way, doing exactly equally. They're all taking equal damage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% sure. Did we see a panic check come on from the Savage Giant? Because he, of course, should have taken that -2 check. It's questionable whether or not the Freefolk or Baratheon, which player would want that to go which way. The 2 wounds on the giant right now could make it just more dangerous.
Yeah, he just bats you around the face. Yeah.
So I think this is very, very important card play now. If when you look at that hand, you have to assume and hope that the following cards are in hand, and they are essential, absolutely essential. They are Stag's Resilience, and they are defensive counter.
Yeah.
They are going to be able to give these champions of the stag a chance against this giant.
Definitely.
But it's only a fighting chance.
Yeah.
And they also require the grabbing of letters as soon as possible.
So we see letters there from Courtney. Just answering chat. Hello, Furioku. Nice to see you here. Yeah, Bazu, Giant onto Swords could be a good play here. Yorick, Quarren just got in. How, I think it's Quarren. I think that's what you go under. How's your doing? At the moment, not well, but that might change. Francesco, hard to tell at this point, yeah. And Toxes, is that? I think that's Tom. That commentator on the right is Daryl. No, I'm the commentator on the right, and that's the commentator on the left. That way. There you go. That's him. That's Carlo, and I'm Mickey. The usual NRG guys. If you watch any of our streams, you'll know that. both from a Song of Ice and Fire stats, we kind of double up because you can't get enough of us at one platform, so so we do stuff for NRG as well. Sorry, my dog has been a bit of a nightmare. She's wanting to go out to the toilet lots and she's wants some attention. All right, so we saw Courtney coming down onto letters, and we saw the vulnerable token going onto Harmer's unit. I'm guessing with Courtney Penrose.
No, interestingly, so I think he's placed Courtney Penrose onto Harmer's unit, but we definitely saw a vulnerable come onto the giant himself, and we haven't seen any healing. So I think that's a bit of an oversight. We see surprise strategy get played at the start of the Freefolk turn.
Tactics cards this turn.
Which is interesting because I still think that this makes swords a very, very
amazing play.
Tempting play.
Ygritte onto swords.
Yeah.
It takes Ygritte onto moneybags. I don't like that. Ygritte onto swords. Just kill the champions with the giant.
Yeah, at this point, he just wants to start throwing attacks onto the champions. You have to know that defensive counter could definitely be out there, but yeah, but it doesn't matter. You just want to burn through them, would be my opinion. Of course, Ygritte is going to get rid of Courtney Penrose's influence ability here.
It's kind of like, I feel like that Courtney play at the start, although necessary, I'm sure he should have just taken bags anyway. Even taking the letters would have been... Taking the letters is fine, but he should have been healing.
Yeah, the letters play is essential, or very, very powerful, shall we say, because you should be doubling up and gaining a D3 heal at the same time.
Yeah, definitely so. Okay, got quite a lot of people lurking in the chat today. I've just had a look at the users in chat thing for me. We've got Pork Chop. He's a regular around these parts. Sunday Slaughter's lurking as well. Twitch username Generic, who's becoming my favourite person to see on these streams. He's been on a couple. As well as Weasel Kingdom, who I know I've been chatting to in the Hard Home chat. On there he is. In fact, he's just posted. If you're sitting back and playing safe into Baratheon champs is not in the Freefolk favour. Yeah, definitely, I agree. Sitting and attacking. So instead we see Shira Errol taking the swords, and Shira's going to get a free attack off. I'm guessing this is the champions attacking the raiders, almost certainly. You don't want to be attacking the bloody giant.
Yeah, it would be suicide to play into the giant. The raiders...
5 hits with the raiders because of the crit. Yeah, what were you going to say?
Getting rid of Harmer can actually be very, very useful in this game. She has had most of her effect of bringing things up, but still those maneuvers can allow really technical things to happen.
No saves.
I think that she still has a lot of value outside of her insignificant, of course.
Oh god, he's attacking the giant.
Just saw him attack into the giant.
Oh no.
So I think that this says very, very strongly
Two wounds, though.
This says very, very strongly that he has defensive counter in hand.
Yes.
But going first and having less activations, defensive counter requires the unit to have not been activated. The giant can easily simply outweight the champions of the stag if it chooses to. Of course, that is a risk right now with Stag's resilience. And we'll see what happens here. With the swords covered up now, I would like to see the giant be very, very patient and basically say, come and get me. I might even have considered using Craster straight away to heal those 2 wounds back, because he is within spikeable kill region right now of Stag's resilience. It would be a slightly risky play, but I think that you could really protect that unit without. We're seeing a late
conviction. I'm guessing he had that conviction,
and it is illegal because it has to be a infantry unit.
Yes.
So that cannot be played on those champions of the stag, which unfortunately is about the only unit you would ever want, or like the main unit you would want to have it on.
Wow.
Very interesting. We see a retreat from the giant. very aware that Stag's Resilience is one of the worst things to kill him. And also, I think a very astute move that currently, as it stands, he will be able to choose to recharge into the Champions of the Stag later in the round.
Yeah. This is...
After that defensive counter goes away, and things will not look good for the Champions of the Stag at all at that point.
No.
They might need to get the Rose Knights in there and generally free those Champions of the Stag up by killing that Raiders unit as soon as possible.
We see Mance's effect coming down onto the Champions as well, and this is just... Oh, he goes for the Rose Knights. This is a really good play on the Rose Knights, I think. Give them a weakened instead, and just make their attack just absolutely biteless.
Yeah, I agree. Also, between a -1 movement, a -1 movement from the corpse pile, -1 movement from Mance, it might not even be a guaranteed charge at that point into those Raiders.
Yeah, and it'll be 1s and 2s disorderly, so he's almost certainly, you know, he's almost certain to be.
If Harmer can survive this round in combat with these two, very late in the round, we will see the Savage Giant come back into the Champions Stag after they've activated, now that he's retreated, and that will be a very likely kill.
So we saw a Crown's panic test on the Thens at -1, but with Stalwart, the base morale 6, -1, 7, Stalwart puts them back at a 5, that's a pass. That was not the play I would have made. Doing a morale check against a unit of Thens with...
I would like to see it go onto the Raiders, which are currently on an objective and only facing up against the Baratheon Wardens.
Yeah.
I think that he needs to make something happen because the center's not going well. He needs to stop bleeding victory points on objectives, and pressuring these Raiders is one of the best ways to do that. Otherwise, he might have looked to put it onto Harmer's Raiders unit to try and better free up the Champions of the Stag and get them away from just being about to be smacked in the face by this Savage Giant.
Yep. We see Baratheon Conviction, by the way, getting moved to an infantry unit, noticing that it shouldn't have been played on the Champions. And we saw the Trappers there shimmy forward and do nothing,
which
I'm
is mostly an activation of the bear, I assume. We might see the bear now move in to take a blocking position in front of the Rose Knights.
Okay, no, he doesn't do that.
We are actually seeing a shot come down from the Trappers into the Baratheon ones, I think.
Is it a shot? He's rolling 6 dice. As always, run D3.
They of course have a very fine line of sight to the edge of the unit.
2 hits, and he does a panic check on his own unit. 2 saves, and the panic check on to steer is a fail for 4.
Is it a fail at 4?
Oh no, it's a net 0 test, right? Their morale is 6.
Yeah, 6 with the +2. He has just gotten away with it with the 4.
Yeah.
Which of course, and we see this bear move that we think that is actually the far more important part of that activation, which is blocking those Rose Knights. He's actually going into. He might have another very technical position where it's not even chargeable by the Rose Knights. The Rose Knights are in its front, but they might not be able to make 50% contact. We thought that before, though, so we'll see whether or not it really is true this time.
No, that's true. There's no way that the unit fits in that gap.
And now we see these Champions of the Stag are basically stranded by themselves against the unit of Raiders, which they need to kill, otherwise the Giant is going to come and get them. If anything, I think they might actually need to retreat. And
it's a sad day. It's a really
flow of activation control and the use of that retreat is becoming more and more important from Rossi. I think it was a very, very good play.
It's a really sad day, that.
Understanding the things that are risky to him being most importantly, Stag's Resilience being must begin engaged.
Yeah, it's a really sad day. A really sad day when a unit of Champions as a Stag has to do a retreat, I think.
From Raiders of all units.
Yeah. It's and that bear can just come in next turn as well and just
Yep.
kick the champions of the stag.
That vicious into the
but
flank is very dangerous. Stag's resilience should be putting them, if he has it, should be putting them on 2 ranks, which means that he could still have enough damage to explosively kill those raiders, assuming a panic fail.
Yeah.
Or assuming a very, very good attack roll. So it's not a 100% safe play to leave those raiders engaged. But Stag Resilience does so much less to them than it does to the Giant.
So we see the Rose Knights activating on this left flank, as you see the camera, and is he going to charge? Yeah, he's just going to charge the trappers right in front of him. Did he use the traps? Because that's disorderly if he used the traps.
We don't see any D3, and we don't see any wounds come down.
The
wounds themselves, of course, would allow the Rose Knights to heal on the attack and do extra wounds. So he may have forgone the wounds for that reason.
The problem is, if he gets 8 hits, which he probably will do with the he doesn't 7, so he can't even one-shot the trappers now. The trappers literally just don't care here.
I think the 11 that die might care.
Nah, you've never played with me before, have you? Oh no, wait, you have. 10, 6. No, only 6 dead. You only actually hit with 7, yeah. And then it's the morale check. I can't keep thinking he rolled like ridiculous. Ooh, we might just be out of that corpse pile. Which is insane if he is.
Hidden traps, of course, is still usable by the trapper unit, even if they themselves are engaged. But he is rapidly running out of units, that Baratheon units that aren't engaged. It is still enough of a deterrent for those wardens to want to go and get those raiders in front of them.
Yeah.
So it looks like Rossi is going to get the better of that 3 to 5 point exchange.
I was saying within 6 inches.
And that's why he's able to bring so much to bear elsewhere.
Yeah.
With the board fully full, we ask ourselves whether or not there are any activations that we want to take. I think Craster's still not activated, so I think that there's no real reason to not just waste the Craster activation here.
Steer going on to do an attack in melee. There's just 8 dice sitting on 4s. Yeah, I guess. We see defensive counter. Attacker becomes weakened and they lose all abilities. Well, they didn't have any abilities anyway on the attack, so it was just 8 dice on 4s. So it's just an 8 dice attack on 4s with weakened.
I think it's a good enough use of defensive counter. At this point, OpenCity has to realize that the chances of Rossi walking into and attacking unactivated units is quite low. That Giant is going to wait out the champions of the Stag. It's not going to save them there. So I think that really getting a weakened token on a unit that he needs to keep alive is a good enough use. And if the Thens go and take this point, then retaking the center point won't even be enough to kind of bring this game back into balance. At the moment, it is strongly into Rossi's control.
Yeah. We're not going to call the game, obviously, but I really like Rossi's position. I wouldn't want to be George in this position at all. George has to do some plays. He has to do something. And that's what you don't want to have to feel like as a Baratheon player. If you have to do something as a Baratheon player, that's never a nice position to be in.
We see a Stag's Resilience coming out. I think from the positioning that we're talking about activation of the Wardens.
Yep.
We see 4 wounds. 4 wounds gained, 4 wounds given. That's huge. And would have been putting the champions of the Stag into a position where they could kill the Savage Giant if the Giant hadn't moved on back. Instead,
The funny
Um,
thing is, come down fighting actually means that they take a wound back. They've just healed. And only 2
quite
hits from the
interesting.
Warden.
But instead, what it puts us into is it's got him back into control of the point. It will let him score a point,
1 wound onto Steer's
which
unit.
is
Rolls the
all he can
panic.
hope for over on this flank at the moment.
And he passes the panic on Steer's unit. So that was actually a good trade. He did effectively 5 wounds and healed 3 as the net with Stag's Resilience. Harmer's Raid is going to activate. What do you do here? Retreat an inch?
I don't know
Retreat an inch,
why.
re-angle
I don't know
slightly?
why he's not just activating Craster, unless I missed his activation
No.
there. I'd also.
Ooh.
I don't like the retreat. It allows the champions of the stag.
To come in
What's
and
he
kill.
looking at? I mean, they can't move into 100%. You can already see the places where they can retreat.
Checking.
Is he looking for a 1-inch retreat? So I think he might be looking at a 1-inch retreat so that the champions of the stag cannot pivot or change their position themselves.
But the thing is, when they activate, they can just move around and potentially charge you in the flank there. That's not a. I mean, that is not a terrible move for George to end in. But I just don't know why he just doesn't activate and pass.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna, maybe he wants to do this to allow the champions to move because they don't start engaged then, and then the trappers can trigger the traps on the champions' movement, doing more automatic D3s.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Any movement when unengaged would allow the trappers to do wounds, but that's not going to kill the champions. They have 4 wounds.
But it
The
stops the
D3.
engaged cards. It stops the engaged cards, and that is right now.
Stop the another Stag Resilience coming down for the heal.
That might be it. That might be exactly why he's doing this.
It could be important. Yeah, that's true. But I feel like the giant hunting them is the most important part, and just keeping them fixed in place for the giant is key.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so looks like a bit of analysis paralysis here from Rossi. We'll have to come back to Rossi's positioning. What do you think over on this flank over here? Just while they're thinking, what do you think over this flank here? Raider versus Warden. This is a good trade-off for Rossi or for George?
Definitely for Rossi at the moment, with him not having to invest anything in the unit, in the Raiders to keep them up. 3 points to hold that objective is brilliant. The corpse pile is having a large effect, as I say, in terms of making it a unappealing charge for the Wardens. Mm-hmm. George could advance to the very front of the objective, which would put him within a much safer charge on a future turn. But he also risks giving up control of the objective to a charge from the Raiders himself. Unlikely, maybe, shall we say, that the Raiders can do enough damage to drop a rank. But I think he would like to have those Wardens engage with those Raiders, and as long as they stay out, obviously the advantage is with Rossi because of the 3 points to 2 points. As long as Rossi doesn't have to do anything about getting shot by the walls, it's just a win for him.
So we see Craster coming out as the final activation for Rossi. He finally just goes, oh yeah, sod it, pass. And the Rose Knights activate, and they are the Rose Knight Shuffle. This is a 2-inch move. 2 inches. Lose an inch, please. Oh, he's just moved 3 inches.
I'm relatively sure he could have, the 1 inch isn't going to do a huge amount, but
he notices it. He notices it. Which is, the thing is, I do think it makes a huge difference. because he
It
just
could. It could.
it just puts him into a
We still
position where he's
see
sat.
them in the same arc of those various units in general.
Yes, yeah,
I would
definitely.
say.
The big difference here though is that it's not. He can't even get outside of the corpse pile. You know,
Yeah.
he literally just couldn't get outside the corpse pile with this kind of move. He had to come straight back. And are we finally going to see Rossi activate? I'd love to see him just activate the trappers and pass. He doesn't need to do anything, you know, so don't. Even
Yeah, pass is fine for me. Retreat is also fine as long as you retreat into a position that doesn't give the Rose Knights loads of room to maneuver themselves.
I don't like the retreat because it opens up a countercharge option.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
And you don't allow them to countercharge.
Keep them in combat then. Losing them is not a big deal, insignificant. If he can pick up 4 points this turn, 2 for the center, the one that he has pretty locked up with his trappers, the one that looks pretty safe with the raiders. Also, don't forget that those trappers would be able to trap the Baratheon wardens if they make a big old charge into the raiders.
Yep.
It looks like he will secure himself 4 points, assuming that giant goes back onto that point. Nothing crazy happens. Then, like, we're talking about like 8-3, right? And at that point, versus a mostly insignificant army, all you have to do is not get wiped out.
Yeah. I mean,
Rossi shouldn't worry about those trappers at all. Them getting killed by Rose Knights is not a big deal.
No. All Rossi actually has to do is make sure he holds 2 points for 2 turns, basically. If he can score that middle point this turn. I don't know about this raider move, you know. Putting himself closer.
I hope that he's pivoting to get as far away as possible by giving himself a completely flat frontage.
Actually, I know what he's doing, and this is legit.
I think he's looking to put the wardens putting them into his flank with not allowing a flank charge. I don't think that's the position to do it. Could be. Yeah, it looks like
he needs to test it. Just get a tray out. You know, you can push him back an inch, and there are ways you can do this. He had enough movement to do it. He was over at the token anyway.
No, again, more really technical, interesting positioning by Rossi to deny combat in the areas that he doesn't want combat, to concentrate on the few areas that he does want combat. It's about bringing your force to bear in the right places, and that's what activation advantage is about, and also that's what like just unit on the board advantage is about. Like, these insignificant units can do a lot of really annoying positionings.
Yeah.
Interesting that we don't think we saw the traps come down on those ones. I might have liked to see that. I really doubt that the Champions of the Stag are going to make a maneuver starting not engaged now. So I would like to see the trappers trap them. That would have put a lot of pressure on the wardens between shots from the wall, plus, you know, a random crown zap here and there and stuff like that. You could really make that unit look like something that George has to commit resources to.
Yep. I think the one thing that Rossi's thinking about now is he's wondering, is the giant going to be able to fit in if the champions kill Harmer's unit? And yeah, George activates the champions.
There is quite possibly a place where the champions will be able to surge forth and protect themselves.
Stag's Resilience rolling a 3 again, so that's 4 wounds onto Harmer's unit. That's huge.
That's 4 wounds. This is the play. Champions will be able to blow up the unit with the attack and get themselves free from this combat.
Yeah. That's not the best hit. Only 6. But there are only 5 models left. 6 dice on 2s. He should take 4 wounds. Statistically, he should take 4 wounds here. which would leave him having to fail the panic test, regardless of what happens. This, of course, comes with its own problem, which we'll talk about in a second. And he rolls less than average, he loses 5 wounds.
Of course, Steyr can always threaten reactivations once a unit has died.
Yeah.
He does only have 3 cards in hand, though. So, with 3 cards in hand,
he didn't butcher too many of them. We saw a Swift Advance thrown away. Was it used, maybe? God. And we saw the champions. They're obviously going to close the door on the giant.
Yeah.
Doing exactly the same thing that Rossi just did to George, going the other
way.
So
currently they don't control the objective fully, but
interestingly, George scores 4 points this turn to Rossi's 2.
That's quite a big swing, but do not forget that Rossi has first activation next round.
You rolled 2 on the D3,
he
which
is
means
trapping on the move, which still leaves him on the 1 rank.
Yep.
Let's see whether or not this giant can still make combat. If he can double activate, it will be very bad news for those champions. Let's just put it that way.
He actually can't double activate. Start of any turn, can't play tactics cards.
Of course, because he's left this giant as his last activation. Is that what we're talking about? As his last activation, he then doesn't gain another activation window.
Correct.
After it to then use the reactivation.
The wording on the FAQs is the moment the last thing is activated on the board, the turn is over.
Yeah.
That includes NCUs as well, of course.
He could, if he has the card in hand, he could even reactivate trappers. That would be crazy, but he would get the bear into the flank. But it looks like he's just settling for a charge next turn into the flank. And that's going to come down to whether or not another defensive counter comes down.
Yeah. Now, the funny thing here is surprise strategy. He can't be played first. It has to be played afterwards because it's the start of any turn. And I believe Steer's reactivation card is the start of any turn as well. So that doesn't prevent Steer from doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He does currently control letters, which means that he should be returning something from his discard pile. I didn't see him necessarily pick anything up. But if he did, it should have been defensive counter.
Or, yeah, defensive counter or staggered resilience to main any of these cards. And we
obviously, if he has one or the other of the card, then he probably wants to have both.
So this was why I almost didn't like the play there from Rossi, because this had the opportunity to happen. I think if he'd have just healed the giant up, there was a good chance that this could never have happened. Mind you, Stag's Resilience would have come out and killed him. Yeah, this is 6 and 2 3s, I think.
So he could have chosen to, as I was saying, his other option was to choose to use Craster to heal the 2 wounds on the giant, which would have had him in at full wounds. Stag's Resilience would have put him down 4 wounds, and then the question is whether or not the champions of the Stag have the balls to try and do 2 more wounds.
I think they did enough. We see all of the saves onto George's Wardens. We see 4 hits in return. And we see 1 save from the Raiders, so taking 3 more wounds. The Trappers over here. Three hits, which is going to be 5 and 5 dead.
5 dead.
That's what you'd expect.
So right now is where we see, at the start of this next turn, is when we see the real value of Courtney. Were it not for Courtney, we'd see this giant walk on in and flatten these champions of the Stag.
Yep.
Because he doesn't have, because of defensive counter, of course, that is unlikely to happen. And I think we're going to see, hopefully see a lot more patience from Rossi. And again, looking to threaten late in the turn. He's going to look to want to force those champions of the Stag to activate before his giant. I expect to see Craster probably healing the giant depending on the way the turn goes.
They've forgotten the -2 panic check again.
Which would be huge onto these champions of the stag. That is a
really
real way that they could take significant amounts of damage.
So,
I would like to see the bear go into the champion of the stag. Doing so is a threatening attack enough so that you could draw out a defensive counter. As they currently stand, I don't think in their current position he's blocking enough, and I'd like to see the bear move. And if it were moving, I don't see why it wouldn't just put a vicious flank attack with no armor saves onto the champions of the stag, which effectively forces a defensive counter.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think. Confused as to why we aren't seeing any play. They gone for a break? Checking things? They might be going for
They have, they ain't told us.
They definitely haven't. Alright, so during this period...
This is obviously, at 6-5, this is a key turn.
Yeah. Now, I apologise for any lag on the stream for the next couple of seconds.
When we look at the damage done...
Yep. That's alright.
When we look at the total damage done, it's obviously massively in favour of the Baratheons right now. We've seen a Raiders die. We've seen a unit of trappers almost completely decimated. But Rossi now has to be looking at how can he get to 10 VPs before that damage becomes something that he can't kind of do anything about. One turn on the center objective is going to be enough to finish this game off really in his favor. Getting onto it is surely going to kill the champions of the stag, and I don't think that there's any way that we'll see these trappers die before they score. So giant onto the center objective is still the win condition for Rossi here.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very interesting to see the way the tactics board and the tactics cards play out to see if that can happen.
Yep. I'm going to quickly throw this up. Hopefully this works first time. Going to quickly throw up our splash screen for all the different things we've got to support the channel just while we wait for the round to continue. I'm sure George has probably just gone for a smoke. So let's have a little look at this bad boy. Wow, look at all the fancy people involved with us. This is the guild, obviously. And all of the... Ooh, restarted itself accidentally there. But all the fancy people we've got, starting with Small Council, West Coast Bannerman, Sunday Slaughter, NRG, obviously, Mythical Studios, Blitz Minis, or Bits and Pieces, I should say. And have I missed anyone? I don't think so, have I? Oh, Tabletop 1. Did I say them? Can't remember. And there's the Master Champions brackets you can see there. This is obviously OpenCity versus Rossi. And obviously check out our merch down below. All the awesome things you can see. I think, are you wearing a NRG top today, Carlo?
Yep, always.
Always.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know if I wear anything else these days now that I don't leave the house.
I still
today
haven't got
I'm repping Raven's Revenge in grey. Lovely, lovely, do everything kind of hoodie. Ooh. I mostly represent them, John.
Yeah. Yeah. All right then. So we're back into the game, and the players are back active. We saw 2 discards coming out, including a Swift Advance from Rossi, and some more card plays. And we see, first of all, straight away, the best play that I think Rossi recognises is Mance onto Letters. He drops Mance onto the champions. Give them a panic and a weakened. Make them do nothing.
It is obviously relatively straightforwardly countered by the money bags play. At that point, you might want to go Shira. Courtney only has value straight away because of Egret. So I expect to see Shira onto bags as a counterplay to that.
don't know why. Oh, they're doing the morale
We've
test for
just
the
seen a
central
morale check.
objectives.
We've just seen morale. I think they've just figured out that the center morale has been missed for the past 2 turns.
And they both
So I
passed.
think they've gone back, and we've seen Rossi take a test, which is passed, and then we've seen the champions take a test and passed.
Yeah. Yeah. So is Toxics? I can't even pronounce your name. Sorry. Did you? Were they the ones designed by a community member? Oh, you designed them, didn't you, Daryl and Scott? I got very confused there. Briefly. All right. So the panic token and the weakened coming out from Manso, what we expected, and the draw 2. And we see in response, Courtney Moneybags take off the panicked.
If you're going Moneybags because of regret, I would like to see it.
Takes the swords.
I would like to see it as Shira. He looks like he's going to free up the Rose Knights, and he's going to start doing damage. That, of course, allows his champions of the Stag to move without taking those auto wounds.
Yep.
If he's aggressive enough, he can put Rossi into survival mode. If he can start to strip away activations, then defensive counter becomes ever more powerful, because once Rossi can't just out-activate him and know that he can have the last activation of the round, then he can't ignore defensive counter on the Giant anymore.
Yeah, and we see the trappers there, all failing, all dead. They're just dead. Yeah, Arta and Toxics did a cool 3D STL for some Freefolk activation banners. I did not know that. And I did not know that there was an STL for Freefolk activation banners. And I'm a Freefolk player. How did I not know these things? They're for free on Thingiverse. Yeah, I'm going to check them out. Drop a link in the chat so I can check them out. If you can, drop a link in the chat. I'll check them out. Promise. Anyway, the Rose Knights kill the trappers, and they are moving towards that raider unit. Things are looking a little bit more dire for Rossi now, right? Would you just take bags here?
Yeah, things are not so all in on this Giant, and slightly so on the bear, that defensive counter is so big, like so big. And I don't know how he's going to get around it.
I'd quite like Ygritte to take bags right now, heal up the Thens, and drop Courtney, because wherever Courtney's gone, he activated Courtney. Wherever Courtney's gone, Ygritte just goes wherever Courtney is.
Yeah. The advantage the Giant has, what the Giant does have is, particularly if it gets healed by Craster, is it can definitely contest the center objective as much as it wants.
Yep.
Like it's going in against 1 rank champions of the Stag. Even if that ability is completely switched off, defensive counter comes down, and you're not going to do any wounds, not going to do any damage, you can deny 2 VPs like with almost certainty. The question is are you walking into, if the champions of the Stag haven't activated, are you walking into another Stag's resilience as well as that defensive counter?
Yeah, definitely. And we see Courtney going down onto the Raiders over there. Seems like a stupid play. I don't understand why target the Raiders, really. Yeah,
I mean,
so
it has almost no value because it straight away gets countered by Ygritte, who just covers the same unit.
So this is actually a big misplay from George. He should target.
Yeah, knowing that means that he should put it onto Steyr of all units, because then Ygritte will of course turn off the attachment.
Yeah.
Does the skin changer lose his abilities, or does the bear still gets to activate?
Yeah,
because the bear has its own abilities, not the skin changer. The skin changer was only on deployment, right?
Yeah, the skin changer loses its ability, which is when it's deployed, it can select an animal, and more importantly, it actually loses the ability if this model is killed, remove its bonded animal from play. Subtlety, but the bear actually will survive if the skin change unit dies this turn.
Trappers disappear.
Yeah. The bear can't activate, but he's still there blocking. think that's subtly very important.
So we're seeing Gret get activated, and like you say, I think that the best move is probably onto the Thens with money bags. Again, denying that VP to the Baratheon Wardens, putting that back into there. The Rose Knights will either be going through and killing that bear, or the bear will be going into the Champions of the Stag. But I think that at the moment he's just going to commit to the bear remaining a blocking piece. It looks like these Rose Knights are just going to walk through and kill these raiders down here, which is not a great position for him to be in. And that puts it all on Rossi. Must get back that center point.
Yep, completely agreed. Oops, I think it's very much in George's favor now, actually. Okay. All right. I keep leaning forward. That's the problem.
And yeah, Weasel, he would get removed at the end of the round, but that is at the end of the round. He could continue to survive and block the Rose Knights. Were it going to matter? I mean, of course, the trappers can't die to just a Crown's Test. They can die to a Crown's Test and then at the end of the round being shot, but that would, of course, remove the bear anyway, and it'd be past the point where it mattered. We see the money bags go on to the trappers, so clearly at this point, Rossi is now scared of losing that point just to chip damage. And that's the difference between the Wardens with their 3-up save and the trappers with their 6-up save, that they can't hold that point for free, whereas the Wardens can.
Yeah. Oh, there's some cool Freefolk activation banners. Toxics. I'm going to keep those for later date. I know a guy with a 3D printer, and I also know a guy with a 3D printer who's getting it mail delivered. Shout out to John there. All right. So we see Eldon coming down to the crowns there to do a crown zap. And was that a fail onto Steer's unit, doing 2 wounds? Or 3 wounds.
I'm pretty sure we saw a Crown's Test onto the Raiders over on over on the left hand side.
In which case, I'm confused as to why Steer's units lost some more models, because I thought it was exactly on 2 ranks. I might have been wrong. Anyway.
At this point, we'll surely see Craster take the last zone. The question is, where will he put those 2 wounds back? The Giant might need them. Because under the current activation flow, he's not going to get the last activation.
I agree. I like it on the Giant. I like it on the Giant a lot, actually. There's some real benefits of putting it on the Giant here. Mainly because you're looking for a panic fail on the Champions of the Stag anyway.
And we're assuming defensive counter. So we're assuming we're not going to be doing D3 plus 2 plus 4 wounds anyway.
So, is this the Trapper shooting the Wardens again? It is. The Trappers are shooting the Wardens again. There's an activation. 1 Warden dead. Flat panic.
So I think that, again, it seems like the best activation he can do to basically activate the bear. I think he wants this bear to go into the flank of the Champions of the Stag to see if that can draw out a defensive counter.
Yep.
It does, of course, when he moves out the way, open up the Rose Knights to go into the flank of the of the Fens, or the Rose Knights might even just straight up countercharge, as we know he has that card in hand and hasn't got loads of use for it.
So the bear charges in. This is interesting because he's still got a zone left of the horses as well. I don't think you care at all what happens here if you're George, because you just take horses with Shira and do what you want with it. panic check? Or 2 dice. He keeps rolling the d3 with it.
No.
2 dice, disorderly charge. 2 twos. Defensive counter.
And we see defensive counter, which is important that we see it played. It could free up the giant to be able to do to not have to be defensive countered.
That's a hit.
But I would say with Courtney's card redraw and other mechanics, I think he's going to get double use out of defensive counter this turn.
So 1 hit, rolling on 3s because of flank. That's a 5. That's a pass. Passes the morale check. Counter charge. Counter charge. No rerolls on the Rose Knights, so it's going to be the Rose Knights, isn't it? They are probably auto win. They should check it. 2 dice. It's a 1.
Ooh.
So that's 4 inches.
4 inches, still surely enough.
They just need to click that move button.
Mance, of course, choosing to be onto the Champions of the Stag.
Just hit the move button. He'll tell you how far
and
away
yeah, Bob,
it
we
is.
saw defensive counter. We see the Rose Knights counter charge, and what interestingly might happen here is if he kills this bear, which surely he will be able to overrun into a position where the Savage Giant, as it stands, can't charge into the Champions of the Stag. He could choose that position where he covers over the 50% of the flank mark.
More importantly, the Rose Knights can activate next
with
and charge
horses
the
open,
giant.
we would then probably see the giant horses back into a position where it can charge.
He can charge the giant with the Rose Knights. We see 3 hits onto the bear in total after the weaken reroll. It's not unlikely that the bear actually survives this. Saving on 4s here. 50% chance. It's actually not quite 50%, but... No, he's dead. Bear's dead.
Takes 2 wounds. That was quite big. That's quite big depending on what these Rose Knights now push on and do.
You could go in and charge the flank of the Savage Giant. That's a combat, yeah. So there's a combat that the Giant just doesn't want to have to deal with. I'm gonna say it. I think Rossi played too conservatively last turn. He knew defensive counter was an option, but he didn't do enough to save the Raiders in combat there. A 1 inch retreat, which he was thinking about, would have been enough. It would have saved the Raiders, it would have put them in a better position, and he couldn't have done the Stag's Resilience play that he opened with, because they weren't engaged. I think that not retreating those Raiders was a bad idea.
Why is that too conservative?
It's too conservative
anything,
to not withdraw, because he was too afraid of the charge.
Okay.
And I think that's conservative. I think it's conservative to be too afraid of the charge. You know, it's a risky play.
This looks very much over now. I think that we will see George score 2 for the center, a point for. I don't know why he's left the back corner. Surely 100% these Rose Knights can kill off 4 Raiders. That, of course, would mean that he could guarantee himself 4 to 5 points on the table, plus threaten to kill the giant for the 6th point. Instead, yeah, I agree. I agree with Brett, who said just charge the giant. He's let the giant walk away from him into a position where the Rose Knights can't help anymore.
Mm-hmm.
This means that, well, surely he has another defensive counter.
Yep. So this all stemmed from
at this point, Rossi wants to get back and control the 5th point to win the game this round. He wants to get these Rose Knights into these Raiders, kill them off, control 3 out of the 4 corner points and the center with the Champions of the Stag for 5.
Yep. So, I mean, that's 8 hits. Is this a dead raider unit, do you reckon?
I mean, very, very lucky if it's not.
Double up. But yeah,
Rossi, presumably, you would hope that of those 5 cards that Rossi has a reactivation. He can also, of course, Endless Horde to bring some things back on, but they are going to be probably too far out of the scene to be able to do anything about it. That could be part of why George took the horses, because he doesn't want an Endless Horde to play into a reactivation. It would have allowed, you know, a unit to come back and then charge the Rose Knights into the flank, for example. So control of that horses is valuable just in itself, even if he didn't really do anything with the zone.
I don't like this play taking Craster. If he's got Steer's Vengeance in hand, he should just play it there rather than wasting Craster, because the problem is here you're going to run out of. If he's got double Steer's Vengeance in hand, and George counterplots 1, then he never gets the opportunity to play the second this turn. So we're going to see if he plays Steer's Vengeance here, he did the wrong thing last turn, 100%. It doesn't look like he's going to play it, which might just means he doesn't have it. To be fair,
we're seeing the ends activate.
Surrounded and exposed. That's fair enough. No horses though, so the Wardens just lose. What do they even lose?
They'll lose their parry.
No, Wardens don't have parry.
Oh no, of course not.
Wardens don't lose any abilities.
They don't lose anything. That doesn't
do anything. He hasn't got horses. He can't put the token on. Is he just going to attack with Steer? Which, by the way, this is attacking with steering, close combat. Defensive counter become weak and they lose all abilities.
Ooh, that is... that might be hasty by George.
That's actually a mistake.
If that results in a Savage Giant getting a attack through,
No hits. No hits from the Thens. Weakened has been used though.
So, I mean, the defensive counter has value. It has, for this round...
Stag's Resilience comes out again.
It could have a huge effect.
4 more wounds
I
back.
think that George is overlooking Steer's Vengeance here, and this Savage Giant doing him a real disservice.
Yep.
Hoping to kill the Giant with Last Stand. Optimistic. With just a base Champions of the Stag attack, considering you need to do 4 wounds to it.
So we see Steer's Vengeance come out. He's allowed to play it because there is a turn in which Rossi has.
Because there is a start of a friendly turn as per the FAQ.
Yep. And we see Counterplot coming out with the reroll from Crowns. Yep. There goes Steer's Vengeance.
And the question is, does he have a second?
I don't know. If he doesn't, it's over. It's over.
It's over. 10-7.
Yeah. Should we go join them in the chat room? I'll catch you over there. Okay. Right. Let's hide that. You get 100% of me now rather than any of Carlo. Hello.
On the token.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, gents.
How are you guys doing? How are you guys doing?
That was so tense, man. Oh my god.
It's very tense.
I couldn't deal with it. My heart is pounding.
Yeah.
Josh played a great game. Congratulations to you.
Rossi played an incredible game there.
The start was very good.
Yeah.
It was. I know that he has Stacks Resilient. I know it, but I hoped that he would play. He would roll a 2, such like that, and yeah, it's like that.
I have to admit, you pondered on the retreat with the Harmer unit for a while.
Yeah.
And I was actually in massive agreement. I thought retreating that unit, you didn't need necessarily to do anything. The champions of the stag unlikely to kill you just with a standard attack where they were, even with the rerolls for the charge. So just allowing them to do the heal, which I know you pondered for ages. Obviously, you opted for them to potentially go for the Stag's Resilience play, and it ended up obviously not playing off for you. Yeah, it was a great game. Like I can't admit it. I thought it was game over. I'll be honest. I did think it was game over. I didn't think there was any way George could bring it back.
I was convinced of it as well. It was I killed Harmer's unit, and I was like, if I can kill that, I can position so he can't get me.
Yeah.
And then I knew it was just a case of trying to keep them alive, and going for kills elsewhere, which is luckily what managed to pan out. But Jesus Christ, man, I'm like,
it was just
full of adrenaline.
Yeah, I didn't get any card for healing this unit, Hammer unit. I was waiting so desperately just for healing the 3 wounds or such like this. There was just no possibility, and I thought, okay, maybe I survived this. You have 6 attacks, maybe you fail something or such like that, or maybe I roll good, 1 survive, and after this it's game over. I just go in with a giant, score my 4 points, and it's over.
It's
it was a risk.
It was a risk. Unfortunately, obviously, it didn't pay out. Carlo, have you got any questions?
Not particularly, I guess. The question is did you consider using your other list, Rossi? I mean, personally, for me, in my mind, there was almost no other list that that George would be bringing. How about your side, though, Rossi? Did you think that your other list was an option, and did you see it playing out any different ways, or was it just a straight up Sty is a great choice for me here?
I wanted to play it totally differently. But as you see here, 1 victory point more. I could not do a shit against it. Sorry for that.
That's all right.
When I saw the +1 was got, I had to rethink my whole tactics again, because my initial.
So talk us through the plan. If the center point weren't worth the 2 VPs, did you have a whole different way that the game was going to go in your mind?
Totally. It was I would do my starting point right up to here, taking the giants more left, and then clean just one edge, and then go just leave him with 2 units over here. He can score his point. I don't mind. And after round 3, I get these 2 points, and then go into the middle and do more damage. But it just don't work this way because of the 1 VP more.
Okay, so the other plan was always to just entirely give up the center objective,
yes.
And you think that that's fine as long as it's not worth 2 VPs.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting battle plan. And big change, I guess. Once that 2 VPs came up in the center, very interesting.
But George really played very well.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that, because I was coming into this really worried. Like, everyone knows by now I'm just happy to be here, and didn't expect to win the first round. So like I kept checking the faction on the stats website. I kept checking the power rankings between us, and it was literally 50-50. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
I know it was an uphill battle from the start, because the game mode really favors the Baratheon more than the Freefolk.
Yeah, I was very happy to see this game mode come up. This was the one that I hoped came up the most, because if it was If it was Feast for Crows, for example, it was just a write off for me. There was no chance. So I was personally happy to see this one come up because you're right. It favors Baratheons or Renly side Baratheons at least.
But I really wondered. You have 9 cards left, but you pulled everything you needed. You pulled.
I had the most incredible. So I had 7 cards in my opening turn.
I just was waiting for the last turn, and I thought, okay, maybe he has a second. Don't have his second counter plot, and you had really everything to getting back.
Yeah, I didn't have an Ars is the Fury. There's the first Ars is the Fury. There's Stag's Wit. I had a really basically perfect. I had 2 defensive counters in my opening hand, which I knew I needed for the Giants, and then I drew off the letters. What I did, I knew because I knew Mance was going to be a big problem. I would normally in this game mode take the horses to try and get my cavalry up to claim the objective early, and I regretted not doing it once you claimed it and scored those 4 points, and I was like, that's what's lost me the game. But because Mance is around, I knew I needed to deny you the 2 tokens, so I took the letters first, and I just drew more and more cards. I drew a surprise strategy in that. There's the other counter plot there, and the last one, Stag's Wit. So yeah.
I thought maybe of staying with the Giant, but it would be very, very risky in this point. You play Stax Resilient, and maybe you're rolling a 3, and then the Giant is just dead.
Yeah, well, my big worry is in round 3 before I kill. In round 3 before I killed the Harmer unit, I was like, I have to kill a unit this turn because if I don't, he's going to keep out activating me, and especially going into your turn to play first on round 4, I was like, then my defensive counters are useless because eventually I'll have to activate the champions, and you just save the Giant till last, and then that's when the champions die. So I knew I had to kill a unit to even out the activations.
So Rossi, do you think that the game was just too much of an uphill battle for this game mode into this matchup as soon as that first point came out, or do you think that there were other things that could have been done?
Oh, definitely. The Freefolk against Baratheon, this game mode is an uphill battle. I think no one doubt this. You can stand here. George didn't do the attack over here. He could do attack, and the trackers would be just gone. Or this trackers would be just gone.
I was thinking about it with the last activation. I was thinking about when I still had 1 NCU left, because I was expecting you to take the horses and you attacked instead. And when you didn't, I was like, well, I've got the horses here. I could do the attack. I did the attack eventually, but I thought you were going to take the horses to move the Giant.
Yeah. The only chance what I've got is to end this maybe before round 4 or maybe at the end of round 4 in my favor. Otherwise, it's not possible. Also, my drawing was not that good. In the early stage of the game, I get Endless Horde 2 times.
Oh, yeah.
And there was nothing dead. And I know you will kill me here, you will kill me here. Yeah. And what to do? I just had 1 stir card in my whole hand, and there's 8 missing.
Yeah.
So Rossi, do you think that the game mode is fair and competitive, or do you think that that it has a lack of balance?
No, it's fair. It's definitely fair. Okay. If you're comparing with the other modes, I mean, seriously, all of the modes favors one faction. Take, for example, Game of Thrones. Stark is just better than Lannister or such like this because he's more mobile. Or here we stand, or such like this. It's a fair thing.
Okay.
And Baratheon, since the dragon released, dragons are very good against Baratheon.
Wow. So we will see. We'll see what happens.
Baratheon is not that bad.
Yeah. Well, brilliant. Thank you. You got any other questions, Mickey?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think that's it. Obviously, commiserations, Rossi, for being knocked out of the Masters Championship. But congratulations to George, who will be going up against, whether you like it or not, a Stark
Definitely
player
a
in the next
Stark,
round,
yeah.
in the shape of either De Border, all the way in Australia, or Rossi's teammate, or at least avenging angel from Germany himself, Larks.
Oh, everybody hates Larks to play against.
So we know who
I
Rossi's
played
from.
once against him, and it was not a pleasure. He's such a nice guy, no doubt, but he's just playing too good.
So we can all tell
Just
who
too
Rossi
damn
wants to
good.
win. All right then, guys. Thanks a lot for letting us stream the game, and we will catch you later on, George. And I will no doubt catch up with you later on, Rossi, in a future tournament or in the very many things that we'll be involved in.
Great, thanks.
Take
It
it
was
easy,
a
guys.
pleasure to be here. Enjoyed your time.
Cheers.
And good luck, George.
Thanks, Rossi. I appreciate him.
Right, guys. That is obviously the end of the stream. We're going to be doing... I don't know if Carlo wants to run in here and do a roundup. Let's pull him in or ask him. But yeah, thanks a lot for joining us, everyone. It's been an interesting game. We'll see. Yep, let's quickly jump in and talk to Carlo. Are you there, Carlo? There we go. Are you there, Carlo? There we go. There's the big man. Final thoughts, Carlo, for yourself?
Really interesting game. Yeah. I didn't think that it would come back like that. I thought that Rossi had too much control of the VPs too early. But yeah, George showing that as long as he just stays on the board for long enough, then it can come back. And really seeing the power of Courtney Penrose. Like, I know that there are, like Loris has an okay rating, like people really rate Renly, Charismatic Air and stuff like that with the Rose Knights, but no commander other than Courtney would have been able to pull off that comeback. Controlling the giant in such an easy way was so important. And yeah, really, really good play, really good use and knowledge of the Courtney cards and abilities. And yeah, I can't wait to see how far Baratheons go. It was a favorable game mode to them, as we said. We'll see whether or not a Baratheon goes all the way. See if we see him in the final. Still 2 of them in the event of like 7 players that are left. Baratheon's doing very, very well. And yeah, I'm super excited.
Cool. Well, brilliant. Thanks again for joining me on this particular Northern Realms gaming stream. And we will be bringing you more content throughout the week. Daryl has uploaded earlier today, is uploading in a minute, I don't know. He's uploading a recorded game that me and him did a recorded commentary over from Bazu and Crag. You can catch us on the NRG YouTube channel going through that game. It was a really good one, watching a Freefolk get an early lead and then maintain it. So I do recommend you watching that back. Aside from that, we will catch you later on this week with more streaming. Not necessarily myself, not necessarily Carlo. We'll also point you in the direction of all of the other content creators who will be streaming games, hopefully. If you want to stream a game, let us know and we can sort that out. We know that Toy Soldier Imports, West Coast Bannerman, Chris Eustace, he's out there doing some stuff as well. Who else have we had? Le Baratheon, the French guys, they might be interested. And anyway, you tell us, guys, if you want to do something, tell us, and we'll give you some times of games that are going on. Thanks a lot for joining us again, Carlo. Thanks a lot for joining us again, all you guys out there, you lovely viewers. And we will catch you on the next one, where we are finding our Masters champion. All the best, guys.